Hi, my name is Carolyn Peeler. I'm really excited to be here with you today and really happy that Ellen Hudson invited me to join her here in the classroom to do a little tutorial. I'm going to be using the Christmas stamps and Christmas dies that recently were released by Ellen and Julie. And so I invite you to pull up a chair, grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and join me for today's card project. And now we're going to go through the techniques to put this together. It's actually a very fast and easy card, and we're going to get right to it. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is to grab a piece of white cardstock. Preferably a watercolor cardstock would be best. I happened to go out of my house today and left my watercolor cardstock at home. So I'm just going to show this technique on a regular cardstock. But if you're doing this technique at home, I really recommend that you have a watercolor. So we're going to go ahead and take the two Distress inks, and we're going to go ahead and put those onto one of these craft mats by Ranger. So we have the two little splotches of ink, and then we're going to go ahead, and we have just a regular jar here filled with some water. We're going to go ahead and put our paintbrush into that. And then with the lighter ink, we're just going to go ahead and just sort of randomly put it onto the cardstock. So just in some kind of blotchy, just like that. Doesn't look super pretty, but this is what we're going after. So now we're going to take our stronger green, and we're going to go ahead and come on and do much of the same idea, but in a couple places overlapping the two greens so that you have kind of fading from one green into the other. And particularly some of these areas like here where you can see there's a higher concentration of the green and the edge is a little bit rough, we want to leave that and allow that to air dry naturally, and that's what's going to give you that kind of fun real watercolor effect that is so popular right now in paper crafting. So you're just going to go ahead and do an area that's a little bit larger than the laurel wreath die. And once you've done, as you can see, it doesn't look super pretty, it doesn't look blended. That's totally fine, and that's actually the look that we're going for. So you can go ahead and let that air dry, or if you're pressed for time or you're in a rush, you can go ahead and use your heat gun, your heat tool, to go ahead and set that and dry it quicker. Once it's dry, you'll go ahead and using the die and your cutting, whatever cutting machine you have, you're going to go ahead and cut the laurel wreath with the die out of your cardstock so that you end up with something like that. Okay, so that's the technique for our laurel. The next thing that we're going to go over is the technique for our little deer head. And this one is really super easy. All we're going to do is take a white cardstock. We're going to put that double-sided adhesive, the Sookwang adhesive, on top of it. You're going to go ahead and put it through your paper trimmer so that it comes out like this. So you have your cardstock on one side, your double-sided adhesive on the other. Then you're going to go ahead and pull off the adhesive. So if you just bear with me for a second as I separate. There we go. So we pull the adhesive off, and then just leave the deer head on your on your work surface. Okay, so once you have your protective coating off, you can go ahead and sprinkle this ultrafine glitter over top, like so. And then what you're going to want to do is just taking your finger, you're going to want to rub the glitter into your adhesive. So you're just sort of burnishing it on there. Okay. And then we can go ahead and tap, tap, tap the excess off so that you end up with this really nice glittered deer head. So now we can set that to the side. Then I'm going to go ahead and just pour my extra glitter back into my container here. All right, so at this point, we're ready to start constructing our card. So I've already taken a piece of white cardstock and folded it in half so that I get the card size. And I have pre-cut my pattern paper. And you'll see in the description below the card project today, I will put the sizes of all the pattern paper that I cut so that if you're duplicating this card, you know exactly what size to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our aqua paper from that basic gray paper pad and we're going to go ahead and apply our adhesive to the back of it. And we'll go ahead and glue that so that it's flush with the top of the card and with the left side of the card. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing, put adhesive on the back of our patterned paper with the cream and the taupe geometric pattern. And that one, when we glue it on, we're going to glue it so that it's flush with the bottom and the left side of the card once again. And you can see it's actually just slightly too big on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and just take my scissors and trim the excess off there so that it's perfectly cut to size. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take, I have already cut a piece of this gold foil cardstock, and you can see I've already taken my sewing machine and sewed a straight white line down it. And I did that because if you wait till the end and you sew it at the end of your card project, you're going to have the sewing on the inside of your card, as you can see with my sample. It's really up to you. I mean, it looks more finished if your sewing is not showing. However, if you're like me, sometimes you don't plan things out too well, and at the end you think, oh gosh, a sewing line would look so pretty there. And then, you know, you just kind of have to add it. But if you plan ahead well, you can go ahead and do something like this so that your sewing is actually not going to show because you've sewed your pattern paper, or you sewed your layer before you've glued the layer down. So, and when I sew, I usually like to sew on a bit wider piece of paper. Had I tried to sew on my sewing machine with a piece of paper this thin or this narrow, there's a possibility that the paper could have been drawn into the mechanism of the machine. So usually when I'm sewing, I like a piece that's a little bit bigger. So for that reason, after I glue it on, I'm going to go ahead here with my scissors and trim it because as you can see, it's a little bit larger than my card. So I'll go ahead and just take my scissors and trim that up. There we go. Okay, the next step is we're going to take our cream cardstock and our sand cardstock, or actually I think it's called a peanut butter, peanut cluster, sorry. Our buttermint cardstock and our peanut cluster cardstock. And we're gonna go ahead and first, before we glue these down, I just, around the edge of the cream, I would like to add a hint of color, a hint of distress. It just kind of sets the card, the edges of the card, gives them some definition. So just do a quick little wash of color around them. And then we're gonna go ahead and use our adhesive and go ahead and center that cream cardstock onto the peanut cluster cardstock. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and before I glue, I always like to sort of place my elements first just to make sure that I'm happy with where they're sitting. So just sort of place everything. And once you're happy, then we can go ahead and we'll apply some adhesive to the back of our laurel. And then we'll go ahead and stick that down. You can see that watercolor technique is just so nice and soft, very pretty. Okay, and then with this Mary, this die cut, as you can see, it's really, really narrow. So for that, I like to use this, the Zig double, it's a two-way glue, but I like using, it's a little bit more precision, and it dries clear so that if it seeps underneath as you're applying the glue, once it dries, you're not going to see an obvious mark where the adhesive was. So apply the adhesive and then go ahead and stick that down. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and stick our deer head. Now this one is going to be mounted using some dimensional adhesive, some pop dots. So we'll go ahead and take two of these. We'll put one behind the head and one sort of in the center, upper center of the head. And then we're also going to want to put one on the antlers, but the antlers are really, really narrow. So what you're going to want to do is to take one of these and cut it probably into thirds, because you need something really quite narrow to fit onto the antler. So when you cut them really small, sometimes they're a bit of a hassle to get off the packaging, but it's the things you have to do to get good results, right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take off the adhesive coating here so that the sticky side is exposed. There we go. And now we can go ahead and stick that guy right where he belongs. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the adhesive on the back of this. And stick this down next. Okay. And now to give it a little bit more of a festive touch and to bring some of that red, some of that holiday red in, we're going to go ahead and use those Hero Art pearls here to go onto the card, sort of as little holly berries. Now you'll notice that with these are actually adhesive lines so that you can get a straight line of these red dots on a project. I've gone ahead and cut the adhesive strip so that they'll come off so that you can apply them one by one. So you're just going to go ahead and just sort of randomly apply these little berries to wherever you sort of think they might look nice on the card. In general, with craft projects, I find that things usually look better in odd numbers. But you just go ahead and do what appeals to you. Let's give one over here. And this actually might be something where tweezers would come in handy to take them off and to apply them a little bit more easily. And let's do one more. Put one maybe right here. Alrighty, so we're almost done. The final thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and take a piece of black cardstock, And then we're going to take the From Our House to Yours greeting that is on the stamp set that I mentioned earlier. And we're going to go ahead and stamp with some white chalk ink. I'm using the Versa Magic, but Hero Arts also has a really nice white chalk ink that you could use. So we're going to go ahead and stamp that onto the black cardstock so that you get this From Our Home to Yours greeting. After you stamp it, then you're going to go ahead and, using your paper trimmer, cut it down, cut your black cardstock down so that you have this strip that has just a little bit of cardstock above and below the greeting. And we're going to go ahead and make a little flag. As you can see on the sample card that we made, we have this little kind of banner flag shape. So the easiest way to do that is sort of looking at your banner, cut into the center mark, and then from each edge, cut in an angle to the point of the center where you created your mark. That's just kind of an easy way to cheat and get a nice little flag, like so. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and decide how large you'd like your flag to be. I'm going to cut it so that I'm showing actually just a little bit of the black on the left side of the greeting. So it's like that. That looks good to me. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my pop dots again. So that we have a little bit more dimension coming into the card. Dimension is one of those things that's really, really easy to add technique-wise, but it adds a lot visually when you're looking at your project. So as you can see, we've had our watercolor technique, we've done the glitter, and we've made a really simple banner. Thanks a lot for joining me today with this card project. It's been my pleasure to be here. I hope that you had fun, maybe learned a thing or two, and as you get your own Christmas card projects underway, I hope that you have a very happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Bye from me.